What's going on, Infected? It's Wolf with the Quarantine, and today I'm going to be taking a look at a game that was sent to me to review with the name of Mistborn Housewar. Now, Mistborn Housewar is a game based on the Mistborn books by Brandon Sanderson. I've actually recently finished the trilogy. Phenomenal books. I highly recommend them to anybody out there. But this game specifically is based on the first book. Now I'm going to start off here. There's not going to be any spoilers during this video on the book series, anything like that, what happens, unless you don't like the names of the main characters that you learned in the very beginning of the book. That'll really be the only spoilers that are going to be in the game. But what is Mistborn Housewar? So, the way this game works is with the books that follow Vin and Kelsier and Sazed and the rest of the group, and it goes through their adventure. This, you are the great houses of Luthadel instead. And so you are the ones effectively working for the Lord Ruler himself. And so you are then wheeling and dealing and kind of throwing your weight around and threats and bribes and extortion around the table to try to effectively have the most victory points. And you're going to be doing this all the while the characters in the books, Vin, Sazed, Kelsier, all of them, they are causing problems in the city and trying to start a house war. So you all are the great houses trying to quell the rebellion. So instead of in the books, they're the good guys, you are playing as the bad guys effectively. So the way this game is played is, it's very, very simple. As I mentioned earlier, you were playing as the great houses of Luthadel. And you're going to each be given a choice between two different great houses, and you're going to choose one of the two. Now, these great houses have resources on them and a number of cards that you're going to be drawing every turn, which are your personality cards. All of which do different things. You have all the different resources like the ska and money and food and prestige and all of that. But then you also have atium, which I'm not going to talk too much on atium because it will refer to that a little bit more in the book. But all you need to know is atium is a wild resource in this. You're going to use that for any resource, really. And then you're going to have your personality cards. Now, the personality cards are your take-that cards, basically. They give you special powers, they break the rules of the game, stuff like that. But on your turn, you're going to advance all of the threats in the city by one space. If any of them fall off the board, then they explode, they erupt. Any bad things that are on them that show a little volcano symbol happen. Usually really bad, whether unrest goes up or burn resources or negative victory points, stuff like that. You're going to do that, then you're going to put it in the card. Then you're going to draw another card and add it to the appropriate area of the board. And then everybody has to basically shut up. And the players whose turn it is going to take the Steel Inquisitor token and put it on any card on the board without any input from any of the other players, which is why everybody they don't get to talk really during this part. And it only takes a couple seconds. Or you can pass. If you pass, you just get one resource of your choice. You always choose atium or one personality card. Then, if you've placed the Steel Inquisitor on one of the cards, now at that point the floor is now open. Everybody begins bickering, threatening, extorting, bribing, whatever, in order to try to get everybody to pull their resources to complete these missions. Now the missions also have victory points on them. So if I say this mission here is, I don't know, there's revolts in the streets. So if we can quell these revolts, it's going to give us 10 points, but total. So maybe I'm putting forth 4 of the 5 resources, but I really need your prestige. So I'll tell you what, you give me your prestige, I'll give you 2 of these 10 victory points. And if you agree, it's locked in stone, and you put your hand on it and count down from 5. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and you remove your hand, and during that countdown, that's when people can be like, no, screw you, haha, and throw down cards, or maybe even put in a counter offer, like, actually, hang on. Then you can take your hand off and go, okay, well, what? And so during this, you're just wheeling and dealing and undercutting each other, and maybe somebody else goes, I'll do it for 1. Okay, awesome. Or maybe I'll give you two different resources. So now I don't have to spend as many on mine. So maybe I take that deal instead. Or maybe they promise me a favor later, which I'll get to that. But then either way, you count down and let go. Now, anything that has been promised, that turn must be given. It's written in stone. Future promises, however, are not. You can lie through your teeth unless somebody plays an obligator card, because there's sly cards that can be played after a deal has been made, which again, obligators are one of those cards. So I can drop that and go, now you have to, and then now you are set, it is set in stone because we mentioned to an obligator that you were going to do it, and we all know how obligators work. But that's pretty much how the game is. You're going to take your victory points, and you're going to split them up however it's supposed to be. You're going to get rid of the resources, and you're going to get rid of the card doing anything that may be on that card as well. Because some of them have penalties or bonuses if you succeed, once you solve one of these cards. And all of your victory points are face down. Now, the reason for this is there are really three ways that the game will end. The game will end is if the Lord Ruler, or not the Lord Ruler, the Vin card comes out. If she is stopped, if you solve Vin, she's really difficult to solve. If you solve her and the unrest is not at 8, then the city is barely holding itself together, but it is. And you are now, whoever has the most victory points is declared the winner. Now, if the Vin card is not solved, but the unrest is not at 8 as well, then you still go off the highest victory points. The city is just on the brink of collapse, but it's still standing. The Lord Ruler still is still in control of the city, whole 9 yards. However, if unrest ever reaches 8 for any reason, whether Vin comes out or not, once it reaches 8, at this point, the city has fallen and the Lord Ruler is no longer in power. Now, whoever's the lowest score is actually going to be declared the winner. So, because of this, you're constantly fighting and bickering and arguing over who is going to get what. So what do I think about the game? Well, first and foremost, there are 3 different game modes you can play, or lengths anyways. There's a short length, a medium length, and a long length, and it really depends where you shuffle the Vin card in. After several plays, playing the short length it feels way too... It's basically just... It's a point grab, is what it becomes at that point, because there's not really enough time to pass that the city can really collapse. Now, when you play the long game, you're always basically just trying to undercut each other and have the lowest score, because at that point, so much is going on, it's really hard to stop the city from collapsing. I guess it can be done, but it is insanely difficult. So with that said, the mid game is the medium length game, which I think is like 90 minutes, maybe 2 hours. That's the sweet spot for the game, in our opinion, in the Quarantine's opinion, because it's got that good balance of points grab, but you have to keep everybody involved, which I'll get to more. You have to keep everybody involved so the city doesn't collapse early, which is really cool, because now you're begrudgingly having to work together, even though you do not want to. I don't want you getting points because I'm pretty sure you already have enough, but I need your help, so we have to come to some kind of agreement. Which brings me to one of my favorite things with this game. You cannot leave anybody behind, because if you do, they just let the city burn. So the first game we played of this, there was one player that we decided they did something. They tried to push everybody out, and was like, I'm just doing this by myself, kind of thing. So we're like, well, fine, screw you. And then the next 2 turns, nobody accepted his help, so he wouldn't get any victory points. So he took it upon himself, with cards that he had in his hand as well, to help him, to just let the city burn, and he had like negative 12 points at the end of the game, and the second lowest was like 3. So we basically handed him the game by not letting him participate in our reindeer games. And I love that about the game, because we all have to look around the board and go, okay, you think you have around 20 points, you have like around 15, so you want to keep everybody right around the same points, so nobody can either let the city tank or run off on their own. So you're kind of trying to force that synergy, which is a really, really cool concept. Now, for the negatives with the game, as I mentioned, the fact that the short game and the long game, they feel... I don't think I'll ever play them. it feels like it's too hard to not let the city fall if you play the long game, and it's too easy to not let the city fall on the long game. It becomes highest points or lowest points, where the mid-range is the sweet spot, because we've played the number of times we've played this game, it's gone both ways every time. So that's probably my biggest negative with the game, is the fact that the short game and the long game feel almost pointless. It changes the game aspect and the dynamic of the game way too much. Another thing that people may not like about this game is, if you are a fan of the Mistborn series, you are playing as the bad guys. You are playing as the great houses of Luthadel. You are catering to the Lord Ruler. So some people are really going to be turned off by that. Me personally, I thought that was a really interesting twist on the Mistborn series. You're playing as the bad guys, so how are you going to go about doing that? Which, again, ties into that scoring mechanism, which is really cool. Because if the city falls, you want to be like, oh no, I never supported the Lord Ruler. It wasn't me, while everybody else is covered in dirt and feces of the Lord Ruler. So I thought that's a really cool mechanic, but that is going to turn some people off. Now, the last two things that people are probably not going to like about the game is, of course, there's card play in the game. You are going to kind of be at the mercy of luck of the draw sometimes, whereas all the cards in there are really good. But depending on situation, or even sometimes the house, what you draw is really going to affect how you play. For example, if you're trying to tank the city, but you're not getting anything that helps you with that, it's really going to be difficult to do. Such as also, if you're a certain house, there are cards in there that give special bonuses to that house. So maybe you're looking for your house's card, but it never comes up and somebody else gets it. So that is going to turn some people off. And the last big problem we had with the game is all of the houses feel somewhat balanced. Some of them are a little stronger than others in certain aspects, but maybe you get a bunch of ska, but I get a bunch and a whole bunch of resources. Maybe not that many cards, but I get 1 or 2 resources, but I get a bunch of cards. So we kind of balance each other out. So I can threaten you during it. You are going to give me some points, or I'm going to screw everything over. Maybe I'm bluffing. Maybe I'm not. But the problem is House Venture is probably the most overpowered one in the game. It feels way stronger than any of the other ones. And I say way stronger, it's probably not way stronger, but it is definitely significantly more powerful than most of the other houses. So that may turn some people off. In our experience, House Venture, it usually has an easier time. With that said, the dynamic of the game being so freeform, it's up to the players can just not let House Venture participate in reindeer games. But then again, we kind of go into that. You have to deal with those consequences. And a last minor little gripe with it is the insert makes absolutely no sense. It's unsleeved and sleeved. The insert does not make any sense at all. It's got these just big gaping areas. Let me see if I can't pull it open here. You have these just giant areas here. This insert doesn't make any sense at all. So I'm not really sure why it's there. Granted, I have mine sleeved, but even unsleeved, it still doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Now, with those negatives out of the way, I absolutely adore this game. Just the free form of that argumentative and threatening, and if you don't do this, I will do this for 2 points, or I'm gonna screw everything over, or I'll promise you something and stab you in the back later, similar to like Spartacus. I adore that about Spartacus. And this game does it with an IP that I really like. So yeah, definitely, and I'm probably going to screw this up, ising with the loving with this game. Anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I'll see you guys next time in the quarantine.